Hi, I'm Leslie Clayton, the founder of the Joyous Heart Network. Welcome to our YouTube page and a series on how to heal sexual trauma. I have a group of friends and educators and mentors who've joined me in this series of conversations about how to heal sexual trauma. And we're getting ready for an event on March 3rd, 2018 here in Atlanta to discuss these issues and to also offer the community a sacred healing process. Today, I have my friend Debbie.unterman with me. And Debbie is an author, a speaker, a transformational game inventor, and a master alchemist. With her degree in interpersonal communication, she's had a lifelong interest in psychotherapy and the brain. Since 2018, her game of clarity, where people actually play their way through their issues, has amazed hundreds with its accuracy, and it's kind of like an oracle. Lately, she's been studying, writing, and speaking about the latest discoveries in neuroscience as it relates to childhood trauma and play. Debbie quickly rose to the top of her field in alchemical hypnotherapy, the subconscious process she practices since its inception in 1983. As a trainer and author of the textbook, also a self-help book, and it's about the archetypal characters inside us all, called Talking to Myself, Learning to Love the Voices in Your Head. Professionally, she specializes in her cure for codependency, innovative couples work, and helping heal survivors of sexual abuse. Her mission is to relieve people's suffering, make them feel safe, innocent, and connected to spirit, while reminding them how to play. She sees clients worldwide over Skype, and she can be reached in her home in Atlanta for a free 15-minute consultation at 770-434-7488. So, Debbie, I just really appreciate you being with me today to be a part of this conversation. You've added so much to my life in the sessions we've had, and I know you have a lot to say, and I'd like to open up the conversation with just talking about what you've learned about the fight, flight, and freeze response, and maybe just some of the distinctions about how they look and what happens in the brain and in the body.
Okay. Thank you, Leslie. It's good to be with you here and on March 3rd. I'm really looking forward to having a forum where we can help people to understand what happens, because the soul murder that occurs when a child is sexually abused is so devastating that it's hard for other people to understand. One of the people that I love to study, and I know that you do too, is the one that created the Polyvagal Theory, Stephen Porges. And he says the worst things that can happen to a human being, so children are little human beings, which is even worse when it happens to them at that young age where it robs their innocence, is to be held down, restrained, which could include like what happened to my brother when he was hospitalized, and we didn't even know this, that he had something like meningitis as a little teeny baby, and because he was trying to pull, tubes out of him or whatever, they had to actually restrain him. So I'm talking about restraint, not just sexual abuse, but to be restrained or to be left all alone, like solitary confinement, something where a person is shunned and just alone. Those are the worst things that can happen to a human being. So, like, for instance, we talk about sexual abuse. Usually there is going to be some restraint, but I have a new client I'm working with, and it's not sexual abuse per se, but get this. When her father died at 2 and her mother left her with a boyfriend, she was an only child, and he had a little girl too, So the two little girls were running around. He wanted to watch the football game. He didn't like the fact they were running in front of the TV, they were screaming, making noise. So what did he do as a solution? And this is something that I hear way too often in my practice over 35 years, the sad truth of what one human being is capable of doing to another. He put them into chairs and tied them each up with their jump rope.
Oh, wow.
And then put a sock in their mouth.
Oh my gosh.
So that incident that happened to her around 3 years old is in every way just as damaging as having been sexually abused. So I don't want people to get caught up in the idea that we use the word sex in sexual abuse. And when people hear sex, they think, I use the term P and V, they think in terms of what we adults think of as sex. And that it is so not important, whatever was done. There's no degree of it being worse if there was more penetration or if there wasn't any at all. I'm saying being tied up with your jump rope in a chair throughout the football game. And can you imagine how much time when you put a kid in timeout for 5 minutes, how much time a couple of hours is? And it's forever. They're never going to be out of that again. It's forever. Time is now for kids. And so they can't move, they can't speak. So this brings me to the idea of the freeze. And okay, so we all know about the fight, flight, and now many people are knowing about the freeze. And you say that in your work, you've known about the freeze for 20 years. And that's great. A lot of people don't know about it. But what happens is that people need to get away. And that's why the fight flight has always been something that, we've learned about in biology and everything, that human beings and the nervous system has something that when you go into anxiety or panic or, you're startled, your musculature wants to run. And what happens is everything goes away from the core, goes to the extremities. And I know you're way better at talking about that in a physiological way because that's how you work with people. But what it's doing is it's giving the ability to fight or run. And it's making that heart rate, go up, all the physiology that goes with it. And then you get into a resting state afterwards. And they say that the sympathetic system that gets activated with that fight flight is the the bad system because it makes your heart race and it takes away all the digestive and it gives you all the issues, and that the parasympathetic is supposed to be the good system. But the thing is, the parasympathetic is the rest system, and it's the system of safety and the system of the rest that we want as human beings is to feel safe and to maybe rest in the arms of, a mother and baby. Obviously, you're resting and you're being comforted. And then as we get older, the arms of a beloved, and that we get to be in that restful state. That's what we would be able to do if our brains were healthy and they were working the way brains are supposed to. But instead, the idea of PTSD that so many people know about, and when, boom, a loud noise that starts a response and we get activated again, that takes us out of our prefrontal cortex and the good part of our brain, our thinking brain, the thing that we think of as our brain. Where's my brain? That's the prefrontal cortex. And it puts us into the more primitive brain of saying, I've got to do something. But there's another brain. There's the middle brain. There's the limbic system in that midbrain where those emotions and memories are stored.
Mm-hmm.
And those get triggered. They're not just startle. They could be, for instance, what do you think would be a response that this client would go through? How about getting triggered every time she would see a jump rope?
Right.
Maybe being triggered every time she sees a pair of socks or a chair. I don't know. Maybe the kind of chair that she was tied to. Maybe kids outside playing jump rope. And so these don't seem like triggers that would make you want to run, but they make you want to freeze.
Yeah, yeah.
These triggers.
The sounds of a football game, right?
Yeah, or maybe every time she sees a football game on TV, it would bring it back. And so these triggers create the freeze that makes us deer in headlights, that lets us be re-victimized, that lets us go into those dangerous situations where not saying no means yes. But are we capable of saying no, a clear, loud no? No, because we're probably frozen in our tongue too. We're frozen all through our body. So the re-victimization, the perpetuation of what happened when we were younger is happening subconsciously because we never got to what's called discharge,
right?
The freeze.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give you a chance to talk because I know that if I don't, you have anything that you want to
I was listening and I was looking at some of the questions that we were, but you're on a great track with what that freeze looks like. Yeah.
Okay, so now let me add another element to it because it was a man named Robert Bob Scare, spelled Scaer. It's hard to know whether it's scar or scare, but either way, it sounds like a good name for somebody doing brain research. The only thing is he didn't start off doing brain research. He was actually a chiropractor, a neurologist, I think it was, and wanted to see why so many of his neck victims of whiplash were not getting better. So he started wondering, well, if I look through 2,000 of my whiplash patients and I start discovering something deeper in their history, because they were all in little teeny fender benders. They were only hit like boom. And yet they have whiplash that's lasting for months, years. It doesn't make any sense. And he found that they all had adverse childhood experiences. We know that, Leslie, as the ACE study or the ACEs. Having had adverse childhood experiences puts you into the place where you are going to be more likely to develop almost every disease known to man, including whiplash. I mean, isn't that crazy? Whiplash? Like, so then he's also thinking, how come I can have race car drivers, and I don't even know if they were his clients, but he's looking at, why is it that some people can like be going 200 miles an hour and crash? And, you know, we see the crash test dummies. We know their heads going crazy, you know, when there is whiplash going on. But why do they get out of the car and they're okay? So the answer has to do with like the restraint, if you want to think of it that way. The word that he uses is they are predators. They're doing the race car driving in a predatory fashion, you know, or boxers, you know, and their heads going back. But they're not in neck braces with whiplash because they have been expecting the punches, and they are also fighting, and they're not getting the same symptoms as someone who was innocently bumped that triggers a response that's going back to something that neurologically has not been completed. They did not discharge. Think of a race car driver. So they're going to get out of there. They're going to take off their helmet. They're going to do something. Think of a boxer. They're doing something. They're discharging what's going on. Survivor is just looking around and going, is it over? Am I safe? Will my world ever be the same again? And of course, what they had to go through while they were there, even the one tied up with the jump rope, was to leave their body. Because God has this amazing way for people to stay safe. We get to get out of the body. We don't have to stay in there and remember it and feel the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And that's also one of the reasons why when it comes to people now saying, oh yeah, that's right, I remember that time I was sexually abused. It's like, just like you remember the time you went to a concert. It's like, that's not where it gets stored in the brain. It gets hidden away, jumbled. The way that I've had one survivor of some tremendous abuse, it was, is to the maximum end of the spectrum. It was satanic ritual abuse. So it was bad. But the way that she described it was, it's like you've got a giant box of puzzle pieces, 2,000, you turn it upside down, you dump it on the floor, and you go, okay, there are your memories. Now put them together.
Oh.
And that's why we don't always remember even what happened. And the whiplash can be the trigger that goes, something's wrong, and the body-brain system needs to go back to the original issue that happened, heal it, and discharge it.
And that's where your work comes in, right? So you're using special tools to create safety so people can track back and reclaim those memories or reweave or repattern. How would you describe the alchemical process with those memories?
First of all, I'd call it clearing, because we can release without clearing. You can be so mad that something happened that you can scream about it. You can, decide that you're fed up and you're mad, and you can slam doors and do dysfunctional kinds of things to release. You can break things. There's all sorts of ways to release. But we want to clear that first. Mm-hmm. We want to go back to the actual incident. Slamming doors might be, we're frustrated with some telemarketer on the phone or something, and, so we just release. But releasing isn't enough. We need to clear it by going back to the incident. And then, I'm looking around for like a little stuffed animal that I might have in here, and I don't have one, but I always do. But that's what I use in my work, is a stuffed animal to represent that child that was hurt. And the child didn't have to be a child. It could have been a 20-year-old, and you pick up that part of you that you've lost, you've abandoned. She's been all alone since then, or he, and you pick him or her up and you say, I'm so sorry. You're not alone anymore. I'm here and I'm a witness and I believe you. And we're going to do something to change that. We're going to make it right. We're going to punish the person, the villain, the one that really perpetrated it, which is really hard for some people. First, they have to get over the fact that, but it may have been mommy or daddy and I love them and I can't get mad at them. I love them and they won't love me anymore, So we have lots of different ways to do that. And we have to let them see that, yes, you can love them, but they were bad. They were a bad daddy at the time when they did that. And it's hard because it can be like Stockholm syndrome, where we bond, traumatic bonding with the person that hurt us, because they hurt us and then they buy us an ice cream or they do something nice. And so it's a process. So we have to go back, trace back, pick up the innocent child, make her or him know that they're loved, and then do something to actually punish or reverse it. We call it changing the incident. And so we take whatever happened and make it different. It could have been that a babysitter, was hired that never should have been hired. And we're able to just change it by saying, let's get a different babysitter. Or it might be that the babysitter gets caught. Parents come home early. They find them doing that to their child and they, call the police on them. Or so we make up a new scene to change that incident. That makes a new memory in the brain. Again, the brain is so amazing that it will hold on to a new memory instead of the old memory, just like Word, a stupid computer program that we're writing on, and we've changed it, and we say, hey, the file's different now. And the computer asks us, do you want us to save the new file? And we say, yeah. And with one keystroke, we overwrite. Well, that's the same thing we can do in the brain. We can overwrite that file so that every time we think about it now, we've got the new way of thinking about it that is actually coming up. It's not like we know, or, it's not like it's erased and like, oh, that never happened. I've been hypnotized out of it. No, that's not it. It's just that the trigger is gone. We can now see a jump rope again or something, and the trigger's gone.
Yeah, that's really, really amazing and very powerful work. So it's we can't change the past, but we can make it right, or we can shift the response to it through the emotional response.
I like the way that John Bradshaw said it in the 80s. It's never too late to have a happy childhood.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Yeah, we can go back. And I say we can change the past. In alchemy, we can change anything because we give new parents. You can even change your parents if they were bad parents, They can become angels. Archangel Michael can be your daddy. The Virgin Mary can be your mommy. Anybody that you want, you can now have as new parents, and you get a new experience of what it was like. And that's if it was incest. I mean, alchemy is so big. We do so many different things. But that's what the crux of it is, making the child innocent.
Well, that leads me to a question I was actually speaking to some others about, was that I know that this thing called magical thinking, there's got the universe and the stars and the angels and the ascended masters and the those beliefs of those different magical realms, the fairy folks and the unicorns and all of them. But it really is I feel like it's been a necessary part of my healing process to kind of use nature, connect with the stars, connect with the galaxies. Or it's anyway, that may be a little off topic, but I think it's what you're talking about, using the mind and the imagination and creating an emotional response that creates safety, helps me think beyond the smaller reptilian brain response to life.
Yes. I think the word magical thinking might be a misnomer because people are going to take that as, oh, that's just magical thinking,
Right.
But we can use magic. We can use the other realms that exist to, find a spiritual solution. I think I'd rather put it that way.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. I think that, I had a friend once that told me I was magical thinking and shamed me for it. So I was like,
whoa, yeah. Okay, wrong term.
Yeah.
But correct. And the other thing that's correct about it is the limbic system is, we now know that the brain is plastic, neuroplasticity. And everybody's all excited. Oh, it's a plastic brain. Well, we've been saying that in alchemy. I started in 1983. And I like to say I have a set of encyclopedias that were written in something like 1989. And they still say that if a brain cell a neuron dies, that's it. They're gone forever. Not true, not true. Science doesn't know everything, and you have to remember that. Harry Potter knows more. If you remember how they were, getting rid of their dementors, that's a better way of explaining it. Ridiculoso, and you make it so that Snape is now wearing a tutu. And that's an actual way. I mean, think about it. They are your dementors, your inner dementors. Mm-hmm. And this is rewiring the right place in the brain that needs to be rewired. That limbic system, the amygdala, the hippocampus is where the memories are stored, and that will shrink from trauma. Mm-hmm. So luckily the brain is plastic and we can have more memories. But why do so many people say, I don't remember my childhood? Because they literally might not. And why do they say they don't remember their trauma? Because they literally might not. And why do parents say that never happened? Because they may have been out of their body too. And they may, in all of they would swear on a Bible and take a lie detector test. And they would say it never happened because in their memory, it didn't. Even possibly them abusing you, they could have been out of their body and actually have no memory of it and call you a liar. But I definitely want to talk about the fact that so many people don't believe.
Yeah. What do you mean don't believe that what do you mean don't believe? Don't believe what?
Well, it's so easy to doubt everything. It's so easy to doubt whatever we think is too hard to believe. I mean, there are people. My brain is still stuck on the school shootings because we are taping exactly 1 week after them, almost to the minute. They were right now in school a week ago, being let out, maybe still hiding in their classrooms, walking past dead bodies of their friends and teachers, seeing blood, seeing things. This is trauma.
Yes.
And there are now people who believe that the kids that are speaking up about it are actors. And there are people that don't believe the Newtown shooting. There are people that think that was all staged. And there are people that don't believe we ever landed on the moon, and people that don't believe the Holocaust ever happened. And, people not believe it. That's why the Me Too movement is so important and why it has taken so long to catch on, because there's safety in numbers. Mm-hmm. And the more people that actually say this happened to me too, the more of a chance that someone will believe it. This is reminding me of Freud. Back in the 1800s, when Freud was first working with people, psychotherapy was a 7-day-a-week process. You sat on the sofa maybe 5, but I don't know if they had weekends. It might have been, every single day. The rich women whose husbands could afford it would send them to therapy. They would lay on his couch. He'd listen, take notes, and they'd go away. And he started hearing a lot of women talk about having been sexually abused. Mm. But who are they being sexually abused by? His rich friends. The doctors, lawyers, judges, magistrates, they were the ones who were sending their wives and daughters. And so he knows the people that they're talking about that abuse them. So at first he believed them. And then it created cognitive dissonance in his mind. And so maybe you know the answer to this. Maybe people have heard this before, but this is the truth. He had to change it to these women want to have a penis. And he created penis envy.
Wow.
Out of sexual abuse.
Wow.
So, the mind makes very strange constructs. Uh-huh. The body tells the truth. Mm-hmm. And this is how we know if something happened. The body reacts.
Right.
You see it viscerally. You feel it viscerally. People throw up. People shake. People, you know, their hearts palpitate, they turn red, they sweat, they have body reactions to something that doesn't make sense. They shouldn't be having this reaction. That's the truth. All the stories that people can make up, like, oh, all these patients are saying that their fathers had their penises in them because they really want a penis. That's a mind construct.
Right. Wow. Whew.
I know. It's hard, but it is really hard for the fact that, you know, Alice Miller will talk about how difficult it is for people to want to believe the worst of anybody. And she was talking about it early, you know, in the 1900s. She was writing about it. And it hadn't quite caught on. There have been people who have been trying to tell, and others who will, you know, I talk about the worst thing that ever happened was in the 90s when the False Memory Syndrome Foundation got started, just when people were really starting to believe. So this is like, we're back to penis envy again. Wow. Because who is it? It's the rich doctors and lawyers, the ones who have been, you know, called out by their daughters, who are defending themselves with money. They're using money. So the people with the money, their lawyers, have to get the best defense. So they make up a new idea that people have instilled false memories into these girls, that they're just lying. And how could this upstanding man do such a thing? And now we have Larry Nassar, the doctor of the gymnasts. This is how we let them get away with it.
Yeah. Well, you know, as you're talking, I'm remembering that you're talking about people don't believe the truth, basically. People have a hard time buying it. They just can't get their mind around it. And that's one of the things that the consciousness movement, a lot of people like in your field have been up against at times too, because people don't really know how to wrap their mind about even the work around the work that you do. But recently I heard you talking about something about truth. You've created something, and it's a whole conversation about the truth, right? Is it, what is that truth telling? Truth telling wins? Is that what it is?
Yes, that's the new page. And I just am kind of amazed that, because, okay, so 35 years I've been in this field. Oh, and can I just say something? When you were reading about me creating clarity, you must have thought the 0 was an 8 or something. You said I invented it in 2018. I invented it in 2000. It's 18 years old. So I've been doing this work 35 years. I've been playing the game of clarity for 18. And I've been in touch with my guides. Like I say, the game is an oracle. It's like you open up the game and these guides go, oh, let's play. Oh, and I do want to talk about play. Play is good for the brain. Okay, yeah. If I don't get any further than that, I want you to know play is good for the brain. I can tell you why if we get into that. But I have gotten in touch with my guides. That's what this whole point is about. When I said people can find their own inner parents, that could be angels or, you know, guides. That's what alchemy is about, is getting out of thinking that we're all alone and finding comfort, spiritual comfort. So when you're talking about magical thinking and I say spiritual thinking, that's what alchemy is, a very spiritual process. So I have been in touch with my guides for a long time. So I have known that I need to speak. You know, I've been guided. It's been kind of unconsciously just bumbling into where I'm supposed to be. So, Leslie, I know you know that I did a lot of traveling last year, and I went to Phoenix at one point and met this woman that had me on her podcast. And we had such a good time on the podcast. It was just at the time when the Me Too movement started. And we said, and all of a sudden she goes, me too, Debbie, can you help me kind of come out on, you know, on camera with my podcast? You're so good. And I think I could feel comfortable with you to do this. And we just didn't want to stop. She wanted me for 1 or 2 programs, then we went into 4, and then I said, this is too good. We got to continue. Let's make like a Facebook group or a Twitter group or something, and let's come up with a name. So we came up with the name Truth Telling Wins.
Mm-hmm.
We actually found you couldn't get that on Twitter. It had to be Truth Tellers Win. So it would be hashtag Truth Tellers Win. But I'm more invested in the Facebook page, which is Truth Telling Wins. So I started this page. It was right around the Me Too movement. And then what happened since then? Like Hollywood, Dr. Nassar, school shootings, the kids now speaking their truth right now as we speak. They are speaking their truths on podiums, on stages, and they are not going to stop. So I decided, I guess the first time that I did a live was a Wednesday. So I said, well, I guess I'll do them on Wednesdays. So there I am last Wednesday, ready to do my live. And I was out of it. I went into PTSD, full-blown PTSD from the school shooting. Mm-hmm. I recognized it. It's called offline. Mm-hmm. When your brain that you're supposed to be using is no longer available to you, we say your brain is offline. Mm-hmm. And I was offline. I couldn't think. I have this little book that I've been using to make notes for all of my lives. And I usually can, look at some notes I've taken over the week and go, okay, there's what I'm going to talk about. I could not think of what to say. So I just said, I'm going to wait and hope that my guides will channel something. And what I thought of was, we have a minority of mostly white men that are ruling the rest of us. And why can't we rise up against them? And in that very moment, as I was thinking this thought, these kids mm-hmm. were having this experience, and they are now rising up. Mm-hmm. And they were the perfect people, because it's apolitical. It's not that they are Republicans, Democrats. They're kids. They're just kids. How can you deny? How can you fight it? Well, they're fighting it by saying they're actors. They're not actors. They're kids. And they're going to speak truth to power. So that was what I was thinking. And in that very moment, this movement kind of started of never again. That this is a moment. We are in a moment. Yeah. And so I'm just doing what Spirit is guiding me to do. So I started this page, Truth Telling Wins, on Facebook every Wednesday around 6 o'clock. I don't know if anybody's listening, but I'm going to keep talking. And I just know that this is what I am meant to do, is just keep speaking and teaching. Wonderful. And I hope people will listen.
Yes, wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, we are just coming to the end of our time here, Debbie, and this is a lot of great content. Thank you for just rolling with it. Yeah, this is a Wednesday afternoon, and just a few hours, you're going to be live on Facebook on Truth Telling Wins. Hopefully we'll get this up on YouTube very soon. Probably not before 6 o'clock though. I'm going to print your email address or your website address and how people can contact you on here. But in case somebody's listening and they don't have the visual, if you want to just say all those things, your website and how they can reach you again.
Okay, let me say my book is called Talking to Myself. And that could be one way that you get to my website, but you could also get to it by Debbie.unterman. So I'll just spell my name once. It's Debbie with the IE, 2 B's IE, regular old, Debbie Unterman. Unterman is UNTERMAN, 1 N. That's usually the question people have. So talkingtomyself.com, debbieunterman.com gets you to my website, Facebook page, same, Twitter, Debbie.unterman. So I keep it really easy. And then this Truth Telling Wins. I would love for you to join me there. And the Game of Clarity, if you ever want to play, I play on the new moon. I think the next one is St. Patrick's Day, which happens to be a Saturday. So we could actually have a nice game of clarity to bring your brain back into balance and it really works. I wish we had time. I would say why play is so good for the brain, but I know we need to end it
Well,
here.
why don't we do another call another time, and we'll talk about the game, because it is phenomenal. It's very unique, and I've played it several times, and I would love to hear more about how the brain heals with play. I want to know more about that, so we'll do it again. But until we do, thank you, and thank you for the wonderful work you are doing in the world, and you are helping a lot of people, and you're just so inspiring and fun to be with, Debbie, always. So for those of you listening, if it's not March 3rd yet, you want to plan to come join us here in Atlanta, March 3rd, 2018, from 1:30 to 5 at the Unitarian Universalist Church for our healing process. And we will have more conversations coming on this page, and please share it with your friends. Thank you. Until we meet again, namaste.